Spain, the country of well-known football clubs, sandy beaches, delicious food, and unique architecture, is months away from getting a new startup law that will change the rules of the game in Europe completely. Here's what you need to know, and here is how you can have faster visas to Spain. Let's talk about it now! Hi, I'm Oliver, and welcome back to the channel Ask Me Startup, where we talk about startups, small businesses, and the world that surrounds them. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and pushing the notification bell, because it really helps this channel to grow. If you're into business, if you plan to start a business, if you have a small startup, please feel free to download my free startup checklist, link in the description below. So today's topic is the new startup law in Spain. Something very, very important for everybody out there looking to start a business, maybe in a different setting than they used to. I'm pretty sure you're aware that many European nations try to attract startups because one way or the other, this is the only chance they have to create new jobs. And Spain, let's call it carefully, has done an okay-ish job so far. So they knew they had to change it, and they're now doing so. This new law, and if you were interested in the law itself, you can read it down here, but you need to know Spanish, I guess, is only months from coming into place into Spain. So what is it that changed it so dramatically that it becomes very attractive for startups to start there? So if we talk about that law, what is it that Spain actually tries to do? Reality is they try to achieve a lot of things because they know they have fallen behind in the competition on startups, and they've seen many people leaving the country. So of course this is what they have to tackle, right? They want to be more attractive for startups. They need to attract more R&D and investment money. They also want to position Spain as a reference hub for startups, which is quite a big call, but maybe they're getting there. They want to facilitate investments in new and important technologies, and they want to create startup hubs in Madrid and Barcelona and all over the country. And furthermore, they also want to facilitate a new path for foreigners to obtain visa in Spain, and that is specifically aiming at digital nomads. Now, with all the complicated things Spain has to deal with, besides the pandemic, besides the current war in Europe, besides its struggle to maintain its very intelligent, well-educated workforce, it has adopted the law on startups. It is now redefining what a startup is, and of course, by that, granting some tax exemptions. First, they have defined that the annual turnover of a startup has to be less than 5 million. It can be less than 5 years old. If you are working in biotechnology or energy or industrial companies, it is allowed to be less than 7 years old to be recognized as a startup. That's all for legal purposes only. It has to have an innovative character in terms of technology, etc. And it may not be listed on any stock exchange. It has to have internal structures to favor meritocracy. And it has to be in a niche market that did not exist prior. Now, if you clearly listen to that, it is an indication that they're trying to attract new businesses, that they're trying to broaden the industry sector in Spain. Because in one way or the other, as you might remember, Spain has a very strong industry sector in real estate and tourism. That might not be enough, and it's not enough to sustain a whole economy on the long run. Furthermore, a big thing Spain has been lacking is the attraction of foreign talents. Usually the path was you go to Spain, you educate yourself if you're Spanish, and then you migrate to Germany, Switzerland, Austria, maybe France, maybe the UK, but you never stayed in Spain. This is what they're trying to change, and on the vice versa, also try to get foreigners to live in the country and work and do their innovation there. So if you start a business, of course, one very, very important thing is, besides your idea, taxes. Because usually you have to pay taxes all the time. And as a startup, you're usually very fragile on your financials. Hence, what Spain is going to do is to give you a tax reduction from their roughly 25% corporate tax to 15%. And these 15% only apply to that time when you are actually doing a positive income. But it goes further than that. So that tax exemption is also valid for digital nomads, for foreigners, people living their life in Spain, maybe working abroad, or working abroad and just partially living in Spain. You are now eligible for that tax reduction as well. it is reduced from 24 to 15% for you, and you may earn up to 60,000 euros. Quite a good amount of money to live a very decent life in Spain, to be honest. You have to make sure, though, that you're not staying more than 183 days in the country, which for most digital nomads, I guess, will be feasible, right? Well, Spain, furthermore, plans also to reduce taxes for investors. Because if one way or the other you plan to start a business, you are in need of money, and most of the money will come from foreign countries. Now, if you are then going to a foreign country like Spain, you might be in trouble because you need to pay a lot of taxes. Spain thought of this now in this law, and they're trying to reduce the amount of money. Hence, you are actually able to deduct the base of these operations from 100,000 euros now instead of 60,000 by a yearly rate of 40%. So, which means you have a tax reduction rate which is significantly higher than prior, which makes it more attractive for foreigners to spend and invest money in Spain. Of course, there are other things they need to change, and they are changing. First of all is it has to get easier to establish a business, and that's what they tackle with. You get rid of most of the paperwork, it's digitally only, and this digital only access is, I guess, key for many because we're digital natives by one way or the other now. And if you're a startup, most of the time it has involves some part of IT. This is what you want, right? It's like Estonia is doing. It's no paperwork, it's just digital only. That's the fastest, easiest, and most reliable way to do things. And last but not least, this law also allows startups to remunerate their employees in a different way with more stock options. And they're actually able to deduct 12 to 45,000 euros on stock options from the income, which actually makes great sense because at the beginning, those stock options are worth nothing. But still, you want those people that work for you in a startup to continue working there, to help building and growing a startup so that it is helping and solving problems. And once it does that, it becomes very valuable, and those stock options become very valuable to those employees as well. What you don't want is to pay taxes on something that has currently just a financial value on the books, but not a real asset value that you can sell. Last but not least, let's go into the details on the visa for digital nomads, because this is changing dramatically and it is boosting its attractiveness. Who are considered a digital nomad and who will have to move to Spain working for a foreign company will have much easier access to this new visa. And that is launched probably around July, as I said in the beginning. So most likely there will be a 1-year residence permit with the possibility of renewal for 2 additional years, as long as the initial requirements continue to be met. In addition, the government also plans to create a specific residence permit to people working in foreign company located in Spain. So it is a new way for you to migrate to Spain, get your work permit there, and then maybe continue other ways. One way or the other, the income that you receive in Spain can't exceed more than 20% of the total income. So what they want is they want you to work somewhere else. They don't want you to work in Spain too much because otherwise you come into problems with the taxation of people living in Spain. But since you're allowed to deduct that much of money and pay only 15% of tax, you know it might be very, very attractive. Why 15%? Well, the global minimum tax is now 15%. I guess that's what they're trying to do. All right, everybody, I hope these good news on Spain were very interesting to you and helpful on your journey to plan and establish a startup or a digital nomad life somewhere in the planet and hopefully in Europe. If you like that content, please subscribe and smash the notification bell. If you got questions, please drop them down below. I would be happy to answer them. If you made it so far in the video, I have to thank you for paying attention to this so far. And I'm going to see you next time.